Today I'm going to be talking about camera movement in Unity 3D. It's something that there's a lot of ways to do it. There are a lot of different things you can do. I started thinking about this from a couple of years ago. Are we good?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, when I was working at Tokaboka, we made a game called Toka Cars. What I have here is kind of this is not at all what the final game looks like, but it's kind of a rough shot of how the driving works. Basically, you have a car and you can touch anywhere, and it will. If you're behind the car, it'll back up. If you're in front of the car, it'll go forward. And the camera moves to always keep the car in view wherever you're going, and also does some interesting things. So you notice that the space ahead of the car always gets more screen space. It's also zooming in and out as we speed up and slow down. Oops. So when the car stops, it just zooms right in, up close. You get a nice view of the car. And the faster you go, actually, the further out the camera seems to be to give you more of a chance to react to what's in front of you. And this is obviously there's nothing really built in that does this. So I spent a lot of time coding things and tweaking all this to make this happen. And I just say, by the way, I always think that this demo that I worked on was much more fun than the actual game ended up being. Because you can sort of swerve around and make tracks and stuff. It was great. Well, you can make tracks in the final product too, but this is more fun. So I wanted to talk about how this works, not in the context of this, but in the context of a separate project that I have worked up just for the occasion. And I wanted to sort of show step by step how this sort of thing can be done. Starting off with, let's see. I've created a very basic scene here that just has a guy, and this is from some built-in assets in Unity. You can get this guy with some animations, and I can use WASD to have him walk around. And right now the camera is not doing anything at all, so he just walks around. The camera is doing nothing. Pretty uninteresting. So the next step in this was to make another scene where the camera does follow him around a bit. I'm going to save that. In this scene, I have a basic camera following script on this guy, and now you can sort of see the edge of the world there. You see the ground's a little different. So you can see that even though the guy is completely stationary in the middle of the screen, the camera is following him. So here the camera is following in a very slavish way. There's just a fixed offset between the guy and the camera, and the script is making sure that is always the same. And this script looks like this. All we have is a start function that saves an offset between the target, which is the guy, and our own transform, which is our own position. And then in our update function, all we do is set our own position based on reversing that subtraction. So we use the current target position to calculate what our current position ought to be. So pretty straightforward, but also pretty limited. So again, we don't have any, here there is no sense of, you don't see any more of what's in front of the guy than what's behind him. And there's some other problems as well. So if I run over the edge of the world, here at this point, if my guy's standing here, well, he can actually walk off the edge. I don't want to do that. But right now the screen is half full of empty space. We'd rather have the camera stop when we're not. Stop at a certain point, so it's not just filling up the screen with a bunch of stuff. So the next step was actually to implement that. I implemented a thing called boundaries, which I have in another scene here. In boundaries, what I've done is I've added a few objects to this. Actually, I'm going to bring up the scene here and take a look. So this is our floor. I've added some empty objects that represent an upper left corner and a lower right corner for the camera. So the camera is somewhere in space. Where is it? There it is. This is the view from above. So the camera is there, the person is there, and I'm creating sort of a box. The camera is going to always hold itself within the sort of rectangle described by this upper left corner and this lower right corner. So when I run this, now if I go towards the edge of the world, at some point the camera just stops. It won't go any farther because there's no point having it move any farther in that direction. The same thing here when I go up towards the top. Whoops, actually it seems to be kind of messed up. I made my box too small somehow. can see that at the bottom of the world, though. When I go to the bottom edge, the camera stops and won't let me, won't move any further. This is kind of a handy way to sort of be able to just say, okay, we're going to go here and no farther. Kind of set some absolute limits for where you want the camera to move, so you're not displaying some empty space that's useless. And the way this looks is like this. So I pretty much just added two public member variables pointing at the upper left corner and upper right or lower right corner of these two spots. And before I set the final position of the camera, I just clamp it so that the X and Z, which are the two axes that are on the ground, so that those are within the range described by this rectangle. So pretty straightforward. But the other thing that I really wanted to have is I wanted it to be so that you see more of what is in front of the guy. So whichever way he's running, you want to see more space in front of him. There might be more enemies there or paths he needs to follow or whatever. And so this is done in the next scene, which I called Expand Forward View. And let's run that. So now if I start him moving, whichever way he turns, the camera adjusts to show more of that. This is kind of herky-jerky. It's not really sort of smooth like I want it to be, but that's because I actually I tried to do sort of a clean room implementation of this and not steal from my old code too much. So it's not quite complete. Something I just kind of threw together this morning. But you get the general idea. So wherever this guy is looking, you see more of the world in front of him, and if he turns around, it's the other way. And this is done in this third class. Here actually I added quite a few things. I added a number of parameters that can be tweaked. I added a couple of other variables to keep track of things like the camera's original angle and like the camera's direction from the last frame. So the idea is you want to be able to have sort of a smooth transition from one location to the next. And this adds quite a bit of code to actually make all this stuff happen. And it's all angles and math, and I'm not going to go over it right now. But it's not too hard. I mean, conceptually you have to kind of figure these things out, and then it's just most of the functionality is actually there inside of Unity's classes to do these calculations for you. And the final thing that I wanted to add here was something similar to what we saw in the little demo there, where I had the camera sort of appear to zoom in and out in relation to the car's velocity. So here I've done something similar. So now as the guy starts walking, whoa. As he's walking, the camera appears to sort of zoom out a bit. And in fact, if he runs, it goes out even farther. I'm actually not moving the camera. I'm actually just changing the camera's field of view, which is the equivalent of actually zooming on a traditional camera. I think I recall that when I was working at Tokyo-Cars, I tried both ways. I tried also moving the camera, actually sliding the camera farther back, which also works, but this is actually a much, much simpler thing to do. The camera object in Unity has a field of view that you can easily adjust, and so the only thing added to make this happen is simply this. I added two more properties for base field of view, like what I want it to be sort of the normal field of view, and a multiplier that would determine how much the character's velocity affects the change of this. And all I have is a single line at near the end of this function that takes the base field of view and adds on this multiplier times whatever the character's forward velocity magnitude is. So that part was extremely straightforward. I think that's actually the one thing we actually ended up not doing at all in Tokyo-Cars. After lots of back and forth and trying things out and stuff, we ended up not doing it that way at all. We just skipped that function entirely. But I think it can be a pretty nice thing to have, and that's about it. So, and again, this is also something that the character here and the basic character controller are stuff that are those things that are in Unity standard assets. You can sort of grab these things. I made a slight tweak to the character controller, but not much. Then I can put this code up somewhere in case anybody wants to have a look at it, see what I did. Any questions?
Why is that guy running?
I think. Well, he's. I think he's a plumber. He's carrying a wrench. Yeah, I think he stole the wrench. Let's face it. He's not a real plumber.
He's a thin Mario.
He's a thief, and he's stolen a wrench and he's trying to get away.
He's running from his guilt. There's nobody there to catch him. It's just his own guilt.
He's running from his own. He's running from himself.
The empty plane represents.
Great.